So it's begun?
Yes.
So far, our Doomsday Killer has given us 3 tableaus, most likely referencing Revelation chapters 8 through 10.
Today's the day.
Is this Doomsday?
Dexter Season 6. A season defined by heavy symbolism and a fair share of stumbles. Critics labeled it heavy-handed with an unimpressive villain and a redundant story arc. And I have to say I kind of agree. But exploring it through the lens of making videos, it provided me with a little extra layer of enjoyment. But if I hadn't have been breaking down all these episodes and trying to look for all the small details, I'm not sure if I would have enjoyed it as much. This season shows Dexter continuing to try to balance his darkest urges with his role as a father.
Maybe I can be better. Better what? A better father to my son.
But his obsession with the hunt inevitably draws him back, and as the season unfolds, Dexter's selfishness and need for control threatens those he cares about most, yet again.
No, you're mine. No. After everything Travis put me through, he's mine. No!
But beyond the somewhat redundant arc, there is quite a bit of symbolism. Take the shattered slides, for example, kind of a forgotten little plot point, but to me it mirrors Dexter's life on the edge of collapse. His secrets, once secure, are slipping through his fingers, and in the background, Harrison's box serves as a chilling echo, a reminder that Dexter's darkness might have a lasting mark. As the season progresses, we're introduced to Brother Sam, a character who offers Dexter a glimpse at a different path.
I used to believe in something else.
What?
Same as you, my dad.
Through Sam, Dexter sees a life shaped by choices, a darkly hopeful reflection that also hints at what Dexter might have become without Harry's influence.
God put me there to do what I'm doing, man. I don't scowl.
But this parallel turns darker when Dexter unwittingly places Harrison in a similar position that Brother Sam's father placed him in, exposing him to danger for his own selfish need for control. Shifting the lens to Travis, I believe he falls short as a villain in the second half of the season. While he drives the story forward, he lacks the nuance and complexity that could have made him a truly compelling antagonist, a figure who would have forced Dexter to confront his own darkness on a deeper level. Season 6 may not have delivered what fans hoped for, but broken glass, dark reflections, and discoveries that can't be undone all point to a chilling question. What if this time Dexter's escape is truly out of reach?
Oh God.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Real Night. This is the R&R for Dexter Season 6. If you haven't gotten that already, this is like a retrospective, just my thoughts on the season, on the characters, before we hop into Season 7, which will be coming up pretty soon after this video. Let's hop into the tier list. Honorable mention definitely has to go to Brian Moser this season. I loved the recurrence of Rudy Brian into the story. The little adventure he and Dexter went on was a lot of fun and a perfect trip down memory lane. It brought back that dark, chaotic energy that Brian always seemed to have. And honestly, as I mentioned before, I wish we had gotten more of him in the season. So Matthews is a character I didn't mind too much in the early seasons. He mostly clashed with Maria, and to be honest, at that point in the show, Maria was definitely not my favorite character.
Look where to... Yuck.
But his exit, that really soured my impression of him. Instead of owning up to his mistakes, he got bitter and turned on Deb. It felt petty and somewhat disappointing final note for his character, so he kind of dropped from a B to a C. Dr. Ross is definitely worth a mention this season, seeing as she brought up the whole Dexter debacle.
Do you think it's weird? Not really. He's my brother.
As an outsider, she was simply doing her job, presenting psychological theories and potential truths. Granted, there were moments here and there where it kind of felt like she was leading her towards a conclusion, but it can be kind of hard to gauge in therapy what is actual discovery and what might be a slight suggestion by the therapist. Character-wise, I didn't really mind her too much. Jamie was a great nanny and did her job very well throughout the season. Up until that last episode, she has her own life to deal with, so, I don't blame her for leaving. She probably thought that Dexter had the situation in hand like anyone else would. I enjoyed her introduction into the story here, and I hope we get a little bit more nuance for her character if she's going to be in next season. I don't know if they're going to pull Sonya here and just kind of drop her or what, but she has a connection to Batista, so I'm thinking she'll probably stick around for a little bit. Brother Sam, he was a great character. One of my favorites this season, and his death felt somewhat unnecessary. I think we still could have gotten a valid, strong arc for Dexter if Brother Sam hadn't have died. We didn't even have to bring him back into the season. If that makes sense, we could have just, left him. It sounds like messed up, but like left him in a coma or left him in recovery and just like focused on the main story going from there. He didn't really have to completely pass away, but I understand why they did that, to get Nick killed so that we could introduce Brian back into the story, but still, I think it was unnecessary. After finding peace within himself, he wanted to share that with others, even though it ended up costing him his life, but we did see the impact that he made, people continuing to follow the path even after he passed away. Lewis is the classic stereotypical geek.
I'm not a geek.
He was genuinely helpful for the department this season, especially in the second half. We have, however, got a glimpse of his darker side, keeping the eye struck killer hand and then eventually sending it to Dexter. He's also developed a game about serial killers. And he seems to have some sort of obsession with Dexter in a way, but he seems also very quick to back down and lacking in the confidence department.
Does it make me a pussy?
Kinda, yeah.
Honest.
A few words from Dexter and he totally cut his game off. Same thing with Batista, although Batista kind of, pulled a gun on him, but still, he was very quick to just let this stuff go. But overall, not a bad addition to the season. Mike started off with real promise this season. He kind of was built up like he was going to come in and be kind of a striking side character, very memorable, but that wasn't the case really at all. He came in, first couple episodes, he was making some intelligent moves, getting everything in the case on track.
Doesn't take a genius to figure it out.
But his legacy this season was just the word tableau.
Tableaus.
It's a theatrical term referring to a picturesque grouping of people or objects.
All this time, I just thought they were called crime scenes.
Angel's arc this season was a bit of a mixed bag for me. As you all know, I'm all about character progression. But initially, it felt like we were backtracking a little bit. His off-screen breakup with Maria after a year of trying left him right back where he started, stuck in the same rut. And getting passed over for the lieutenant role just added to that feeling. But as the season went on, I saw growth. Angel started focusing on the job instead of falling back on his usual coping methods, like drinking, partying. He even turned Quinn's immature antics into an advantage, making useful discoveries and pulling something positive from the not-so-great situations. This shift showed a more grounded side of Angel, one that was willing to kind of take a step back and push through disappointments rather than escape them. For him, that's real progress. Maria had a season that felt a lot like a reset. Just like Angel, she kind of started off back where she used to be. But now, thanks to some detective work, she managed to snag her promotion to captain. And while she's not my favorite character, in a setting where political maneuvering is the name of the game, she knows how to play and she continues to play it well. Her frustration this season felt more directed at Matthews than anyone else. And unfortunately, Deb ended up bearing the brunt of it, caught like a pawn between the two of them.
This is how the game is played. Did you really think that Matthews made you lieutenant because you were ready? It was all politics to get back at me.
In the end, Maria's arc landed pretty much where it always does, right on par with her character's usual course. There's not a whole lot to say about Vince this season, I mean, really any season, but I'm always hesitant not to include him in the list just because he's like the most main side character that we have in the show, He always kind of walks that thin line, in my opinion. He has been steady, though, and I think he showed a bit of growth when he fired Ryan outright, rather than taking his own advice.
When it comes to matters of the heart, always follow your dick.
That decision was a small but notable step forward for him. Quinn. Oh, Lord have mercy. Quinn. He was an annoyance. Back in season 3, he actually criticized Deb for getting involved with Anton.
So you're no longer sleeping with the key witness in this investigation.
Bonus track.
Fucking used me.
And then, fast forward season 6, he just does the same exact thing with Carissa Porter, which is pretty ironic. He started off this dirty cop. He remains kind of a dirty cop with a little bit of self-righteousness that's not necessarily warranted. I will say I think it is confirmed, though, that this was his first real-ish relationship. So I don't necessarily fault him for behaving the way that he did or being so torn up about it, but for a character that's supposed to be this serial player kind of ladies man archetype, he really got torn up over Deb. Like, what was that?
It's not good enough. I want more.
Deb was on track for the S tier this season. Her growth was pretty impressive. She handled canvassing and dealing with Maria with tact, sought therapy instead of jumping into another relationship, which she has a habit of doing, capped it all off with a well-deserved promotion as a tangible representation of her progress. It was shaping up to be one of her best seasons until...
It makes my whole life, every man I've ever loved, makes sense.
Police! Help! Help!
I'll maintain it is a valid angle to explore. I think it just needed a lot more time. The speed at which Deb accepted it as truth and was ready to lay it all out for Dexter within just a couple of episodes.
This is how it feels to be in control of your emotions.
No. As I've mentioned in my reactions, it's not really out of character for Deb to dive headfirst into situations, especially in regards to love, but I would have expected a lot more hesitation from her since it is Dexter, her brother that she's grown up with, that she's known her entire life. I also am aware, thanks to a comment, that Jennifer Carpenter actually addressed this herself.
Whenever I start any job, I always have a secret. That was always the secret. I don't think that she would ever name it as like a crush, but there was always a draw. There's also an intimacy that she shares with him that she can't seem to find in another man's.
He's been the one constantly good thing in my life.
It's all in how you look at it.
Even so, if they wanted to explore this and go that route, I think it definitely needed a season of its own for this little side plot to happen, or at least like 6 episodes at the very least. So she landed on an A this time. Travis and Geller are together. They had real potential as antagonists this season, especially Geller. The professor turned serial killer driven by his own interpretation of religion was a compelling angle to explore. Travis was just kind of like along for the ride. The concept was strong, but I just think the execution fell short. I know that some of you were saying that Colin Hanks' performance also kind of made the role or Travis as a villain just not believable for you, and I can definitely see that. There were some moments that it didn't necessarily click, but I think if the writing hadn't dropped off in the second half of the season, Travis would have been able to be a stronger villain. The issues with his character, I felt, were more rooted in plot direction over acting. If they were going to have Geller be a split personality, I would have loved Geller to remain within the show, kind of counterbalancing Travis now acting as this sort of figure that's going to be, keeping him from doing what he needs to do. Because we already started to get a hint of that when Geller confronted him outside of the church and was saying, you killed me.
You killed me, Travis. And then you stuck me in the freezer.
So he was starting to already get into that persona of a, separate entity that's going to be against Travis now. I just wish they would have carried that forward. I've kind of started to equate Dexter's rating with the season as a whole. It is really just a character study of, who he is, because we know his internal monologues, we know pretty much everything about him, and they slowly reveal more and more of his past. But this season saw Dexter flirting with religion, but even deeper than that, he was wrestling with themes of forgiveness and self-restraint.
You need to forgive him. I don't know how. Just let it go. Can't live with the hate in your heart.
Initially, this was developed in an intriguing way, but around the season's midpoint, things started to unravel. Dexter's character didn't really seem to evolve meaningfully this season. It's as if the writers aimed to give the fans something that looked kind of different and felt a little bit different, but at its core was really just, another Dexter plot. He didn't really go through any major changes this time around, except for, of course, that last moment of the season. The last minute of the season. I just want to reiterate that, a B is not necessarily bad for me, but it's just kind of average, and that's what this season felt like. Just kind of like an average Dexter story. That was the tier list. If you guys agree, disagree, let me know in the comments. We're going to hop into the predictions. course, we're going to be dealing with the fallout of Deb finding out about Dexter, which I can already see making for a compelling season in and of itself. She might go the LaGuerta route and focus obsessively on the job and just cut everything else out. She could also retreat in on herself, not be able to work at all. I can also see a scenario where she maybe tries to help Dexter, but at the end of the day, it all hinges on her decision in that moment. What is she gonna do once we hop back in? You know what I'm saying? And in the event that she doesn't pursue Dexter, I can also see a situation where it would be like, spoilers for Breaking Bad, a dynamic like Skylar and Walt had, and they kind of separated for a little bit. You know, she was keeping a secret, keeping everything on the down low, but it was like a cautious distance. If she does do that, you know, take that cautious distance, I can see her taking Harrison as well. You know, just to kind of like keep him away from Dexter because she knows, you know, who Dexter is. It's really hard to gauge exactly how things are going to play out with the department. They always change things up as far as the villain goes, so that's really never going to be able to be predicted. But if she quits and walks away, that's bound to raise some questions and some suspicion, but Dexter has definitely dealt with suspicion in the past. You know, dealing season 2, that was what it was all about. Everything next season hinges on how Deb handles this moment coming up. That's it for the R&R. If you all enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and leave a comment down below. I know a lot of you hated this season, but if there was something that you liked about it, let me know in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in season 7.